Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to WCS Challenger. We're moving into Group D, match number 2. It's going to be another great match. My name is PtitDrogo. I'm joined here by Zombie Grub, who is more eloquent with words than I am. What's up?
Group number D.
Group number D.
You really should have ran with that. Just like, I didn't say anything wrong. What are you doing?
So, guys, we're going to be moving into a Protoss versus Zerg with our other 2 players. We just came in off the match where Hero Marine was able to take out Clem. Do you have any thoughts on that match?
The second game was, I actually, kind of missed it, right? And I had to ask you guys again what happened, because I was like, oh, let's check my notes. And then I looked up and I was like, what happened? It sounds like it was a pretty typical TVT phenomenon, though. But otherwise, the first game sounds like what do you expect? Hero Marine's the old standard, so he was a bit better in that macro game.
Absolutely. Well, moving into this next match, we do have Namshar versus PtitDrogo, and whereas I feel like Clem is still that very unproven player, hasn't really gotten the big results as much as I love hyping that kid up. Yeah. Namshar and Drogo, I think, have both seen some degree of results. Drogo maybe a little bit more further reaching in tournaments and stuff. Yeah. How do you feel about this match?
Yeah, I think that they would be pretty well matched for each other, but you're right. Drogo has had some higher peaks, and Namshar is like Mr. Consistency for Europe, as in he's not just consistent. We kind of expect, we can kind of guess, how far he's going to go, but also that he's consistently improving. So it's like, okay, I think I know where Namshar is now, but give him 7 months, and maybe he's making like round of 8.
Yeah.
In all those WCSs. So
that's one of my favorite things about Namshar is he's like, in that sense, it's a very relatable story of he's not one of those guys that just raw natural talent shot up to the top. He actually worked his way every single day up to this point. He's continuing to do so. Speaking of which, we are going to be starting down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, top of the red Zerg player. He is Team Infinity Gaming's Namshar.
In the top left, as the blue Protoss for Team Makers, it is Drogo.
Ooh, it says Team Makers down there. We got an update on our graphics overlay.
How unprofessional, you're pointing out the production. None of us ever do that.
Don't you mean I'm pointing out how on point production is?
How unprofessional, you're pointing out production.
Well, Drogo, it used to say on that little card at one point last year that he had the nickname of the Drone Killer. And I think it's because he's quite good at the execution of a lot of his builds. He's very good, especially in PvZ, trying to find that early game damage and everything. Sometimes still taking it to the later stage of the game, not necessarily saying that it's just 2-base all-ins or anything, but even just with the standard openings, he's very, very good at the execution of those early openings.
So I wouldn't say that Drogo is afraid to play a longer game, but he does believe that late game PvZ is pretty Zerg favored. And it's really hard to disagree with him with the PvZs we've seen this weekend and last, especially. So I'm going to assume that he does not let the game drag on, actually a lot like what we saw from DNS perhaps, where he does find himself in that late game position and just goes, no, I'm not playing that Fleet Beacon game. But otherwise, a lot of early aggression. 2, 3 bases. I mean, if he gets a drone, that'd be cool, but is it really going to happen, Fear Dragon? No.
Once in a blue moon. Once in a blue moon. It's, it's similar to if you're ever in Platinum League or below, and you're in a PvP or something, and you just stick your early scouting probe onto your opponent's pylon, and they're just going for a double gate open or something, 1 in every 100 games, you'll kill that pylon with your probe.
It gets rather close, actually.
Yeah, you actually will bring it very low, and people just won't notice or care.
Yeah.
1 in every 100 games, and that's why I say, even at pro level, 1 in every 100 games, the pro will kill a random worker that they really shouldn't have.
There was a game where that pylon actually was killed. It's not supposed to happen.
No, it's not.
But if you do, it'll get it really low, and it actually was killed. I don't remember what game, but someone's going to tweet at me the exact one.
No.
So, talking about these players again, we do have the Twilight Council with the Robo now on the way for Drogo. I said Drogo, as you were saying, what I was saying, both were saying, that he's going to be more emphasis on those aggressive openers, the Drone Killer, right? But also wanting to get that early edge so he doesn't get into that super late game where Namshar is Mr. Consistent. It's also a lot because he is a consistent macro player. He doesn't rely on gimmicks or cheeses or anything like that. But that can be his weakness as well. That's why you can lose someone like Drogo. I actually think that Drogo will take this, and we already have a bit of a spicy opener with the Dark Shrine.
Yeah, I know he did write that blog before WCS Winter's Global Playoffs, where he talked a little bit about his Dark Shrine opening and how he does hit at a slightly earlier time than Zerg players are used to, so catches a lot of them off guard. I wonder if this is that variation. I still haven't been able to spot the difference between them.
So he was pretty specific that he does not probe scout with that build.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. So that build would actually warp in DTs. I think he said at 411, and then hits at 420. So it's a very easy build to remember.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not going to be this build. It is more typical. He also has a couple fake, like, Dark Shrine builds. This is literally just like the Dark Templar Archon version that you might expect.
Okay, so you just warped in an Adept, and that means that one of the gateways are actually going to be on cooldown here for when the Warp Prism moves in. So I think he can only warp in 3 DTs. I guess he's going to just wait a little bit until the Warp Prism gets in position anyway, so.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like a little awkward, but so he doesn't get to immediately warp in.
Card to boost something.
There you go. There you go. And the Namshar's Lings do not see this Warp Prism. There's no Overlord over here, so no chance to even jump on top of the Archons, which always can be something. But Namshar's not really looking to get around this or deal with this early, like with Lings, something like that. He has Roaches, again, that standard defensive macro that, I mean, is usually pretty safe, but I'm sure that there's ways that the Protoss, someone like Drogo could look in and be like, you know what, I know exactly how to abuse that, because you are kind of expecting similar things from Namshar's games.
Absolutely. Well, we have the Warp Prism getting pushed back there. All the Roaches going to be able to do a nice job of just jumping around between the bases, pushing those Archons further and further back behind this Drogo, getting up that third base, which is protected by a couple of Adepts. So those Lings making their way across the map are not going to be able to do too much, hopefully. Archons already netting themselves 3 kills, but that Warp Prism getting a little bit lower on hit points.
So to bring it back to Winter, we had Drogo very aggressive, remember, with those Archons, and he did manage to find a couple of Zergs who were cutting that corner. They didn't have that Spore Crawl in the one position, and their Queens weren't close to the main base. There's no creep spread, so on and so forth. Doesn't work out so much here. There was a Spore Crawler, and that Warp Prism takes quite a lot of damage, but as long as it's not dead.
Yeah. Is going to be the important factor, and might be able to snipe up another Overlord over here. You should be able to get it, as one of those Archons still has a lot of hit points. And this is what we were talking about. Drogo's very good at finding a lot of the damage that a ton of Protoss players, when they go for these Archon drops these days, they really don't find very much. But killing off 3 drones, a handful of Lings, 2 Overlords, a couple of Creep Tumors, this is all really, really solid for a PvZ.
Yeah. And he doesn't really have to worry about any potential, like, Roach all-in that we might have seen from, like, Lambo, right, yesterday.
Yeah.
As, again, Namshar is a little bit predictable. But you would be keeping tabs on it regardless, just making sure, because Namshar is not, always predictable. He is getting better at not just the game, but also, like, playing in these tournaments and getting farther based off of a couple cheeky builds. But it is just in Hydras. So Roach Hydra with the safe amount of workers, 4th base now on the way. Lucent Phoenix double to make sure he gets the full scout. We'll see the Hydralisk Den. Ooh, nice.
That's a really nice cancel on that 4th base. Kills the drone as well. Extra annoying. Gonna take even longer there. Behind this, Drogo starts up his Storm nice and early on. Doesn't want to wait too long for that as he's finished up that Temple Archives. Adds on his big flood of gateways. Is at a pretty comfortable 64 workers.
Ooh, this is...
Wow, he's going to get a Queen as well. This is getting so much more damage than the traditional Protoss player will oftentimes get in this matchup.
Yeah, this is really nice. I was like, that was a little scary. If there was a 3rd Queen that was making her way up there, then
he's only lost 1 Adept this game. Look at how much damage he's done.
Yeah, it would have been scary. But he's getting all the rewards here and not really being punished. Behind this, macro looking pretty good. He's on his way to Storm, so if Namshar were to push across the map, but he's not planning on it, he's going for Lurkers. That probably wouldn't work out so well, but I brought it up. Speaking of Lurkers, right, we're going to have to watch the dance of positioning and making sure that Drogo does have the detection. Since he didn't go for a Stargate opener here, he's not going to have the easier way, right? Revelation is a little more reliable than the Observer.
The Observer is on the side of the map, so it's going to start retreating back home, thankfully, before the Queens and the Hydras and the Overseer catch it. So he's going to have that detection still available, and he doesn't want to take time away from his Robo right now, because he really wants up a lot more Immortals. That is another key factor of dealing with those Lurkers, is having a really high Immortal count. And so far, he's going up to 5. He's on his 6th Immortal in production now. Starts up his 4th base. which does get spotted out, I think, by a changeling there.
Yeah, you know, we don't really see too many double robo follow-ups, it feels like, anymore.
Yeah.
That was like usually the go-to
It's like
standard.
Mana will still sometimes do it every so often, but it's definitely a lot more rare.
Yeah, but if you start the Immortal production nice and early, then having what is going to be like probably 8, right? By the time Lurkers even make their way across the map, it's pretty good.
That is a pretty big warp in of charge lots. It's going to be very annoying. At the same time, he moves into the third base, and the army pokes forward at the very front of the creep. Now, that is going to be where a decent number of the units for Namshar are, but I don't know that that's actually a large enough army to take on what Drogo has, especially since Storm is finished.
Yeah, actually, I didn't think that Drogo was going to be able to find such a clean attack here, but it absolutely is fantastic.
How does Namshar get down this ramp against the Storms?
He forces his way. I mean, those are roaches he could force his way, but with the Hydras, it is quite dangerous. Another ramp that he's going to have to go up against. He just didn't have really the supply to deal with this, and he hadn't gotten the Lurkers quite yet. Drogo hitting a pretty damn good attack.
Oh, God. Oh, no, get the spawning block.
So many Hydras. I think it's actually better to get the Hydras there.
Oh, he gets the fourth base.
He got so many Hydras. They were all so low, I guess, from a storm.
Wow, 26 Hydras going down between all that. And he does get that spawning pool, like you were saying. So fourth base and the spawning pool taken out. A lot of the army supply there taken out for Namshar. A decent number of drones as well. Drogo has taken out the... He's taken out Namshar.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a brutal attack. One of those things where if Namshar had probably, maybe dealt with the warpers in the main really, really quickly, like didn't worry about it at all, and he had 20 more supply, moving out with that type of army and potentially getting surrounded is bad news for the Protoss, but instead distraction, hitting when Namshar was kind of banking for those lurkers. It was quite a good timing, literally as the lurker den was finishing.
And of course, I'm sure it made it all the much better just based on all the damage that he did the very early beginning of the game, where he was sniping off the Overlord, sniping off drones, sniping off Queens, just canceling the fourth base. All of this damage does accumulate and throws Namshar even more off his game, so everything's just a little bit slower. You imagine if he had been able to get up to things maybe like 5-10 seconds faster, and suddenly the lurkers maybe are already starting up. He does have a few more units in position to push back those units at the front from making their way down that ramp and getting into a good spot. Absolutely.
I feel like one of the weaknesses of Namshar is that he's predictable but safe, but that also means that it's average, right? Like it's an okay amount of economy, it's an okay amount of work or of
middle
army.
of the road.
Yeah, exactly, middle of the road. So he gets the situation where like you have roaches and theoretically you don't take any damage. But you actually still do take damage, and you built those roaches, and you were kind of being conservative in case there was another attack on the way, because you weren't, sometimes Protoss mix in those charge lots or something like that, right? Where Drogo might be, kind of gambling a little bit more back at home. He does have the map presence, the pressure of the Archon drop, which is working wonderfully, but he also might be like, you know what, it's Namshar. Like, I'll go ahead and continue producing probes. I'll put all the chrono into that, like that type of stuff.
Yeah. I think it's a very typical way for most Protoss players to kind of say, like, yeah, I'll take some risks and try and guess exactly what you might be doing or something, cut some corners here or over there, or maybe get a little bit more aggressive here or there. So it definitely pays off pretty well for Drogo, but we're moving on to year 0.
Yeah, so
this is
it's almost
infamous map for PvZ right now.
Yeah, but Drogo has said that he likes this map. Now, I don't know if... I feel like Namshar... in the benefit here is that like he probably thinks like everything's okay. You don't really hear her complain a ton.
Namshar is just a player in general. Like even if he's really struggling in a matchup, you don't hear him complaining. I think he's got one of the most solid mentalities in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. So I think they're coming in here on year 0, maybe acknowledging that's going to be a later game potentially, but still pretty comfortable with it. Both of them. Okay. Well, interested to see where things go. Namshar, of course, with a... he's still, like you said, had like a bit of a middle-of-the-road build, but he did get up all the spore cars and everything. He didn't take too many major risks in the sense that I'm not as worried that he's going to just suddenly die to Dark Templar or something, or one of those other various ways that you can just immediately die that Drogo might catch a lot of other Zerg players off guard with. And just because year 0 is a bigger map, maybe that kind of middle-of-the-road safety play just works out a little bit better in terms of dealing with some of the harassment and everything. Just comes a little bit later. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit later for that big attack in the middle of the map, like in last game, and then also potentially you may, maybe you can get that setup that you missed out on because there were so many things happening last game, because you don't take damage from the Archons and you don't let the warp prison back in to warp in like, what was it, like 10 zealots. Like, it was time.
That was a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it is going to be good old hatch gas pool. Another small little thing is that Namshar doesn't have to worry about taking his third base instead of his natural because there's no probe there that's scouting around or doing pylon blocks and all kinds of shenanigans. Drogo instead just keeping his stuff at home, not bothering to scout super early on, throws down the cyber core, then sends that probe out to confirm. And Namshar's not doing anything kind of out of character, going for some kind of all-in or anything.
I imagine most Protoss don't bother trying to pylon block on this map, right?
No, it just takes, I can say mostly because with cannon rush times and stuff, I send out the probe, I'm like, this is the map that even printf will be like, yeah, normally I want to send out the probe on the pylon. No, can't do it on this map. You have to send it out before the pylon to even get it there at a reasonable period of time. Like, yep, and I'm not saying that you want to scout before pylon, but I'm saying it takes a very long time to make your way across the map.
Yeah, so you just wouldn't really bother.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So, Stargate opener for Drogo this time. Last game, he went directly into the Archon drop. This could still be followed up with Archons, but he does have a couple of other nasty builds.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay,
you only
so pylon blocks one base.
Because if you only see 2 lings pop out, even if both lings are back there, the pylon will still actually build relatively quickly. You need 3 or 4 lings to really start to disincentivize that pylon from completing.
Yeah. I don't know if he
lets it finish.
Did he chrono that adept? Maybe not, because like if you see a chronoed adept, I mean it's usually in the Zerg's best interest to get at least like 4 or 6 lings. But Namshar just really skimping on lings here, going for 2. He's
Oh
gonna have to go for the other base.
Wait, Namshar didn't start up any more lings either.
No,
this
he
is
didn't.
a
No, he didn't.
legitimate problem. He starts up more drones too.
So, I mean, his response seems to be kind of an FU, to be honest. Like, he's building a lair. He, like, slightly, I think it was at 3 minutes. It was kind of as he was getting denied another base. But that's a fast lair, Spear Dragon.
Yeah.
That's a very fast lair. I'm going to imagine it's a Nydus Worm. He is going to get confirmation on the Stargate eventually. Actually, I thought he was going to send his Overlord in, but there is a Stalker that could poke at it.
Yeah,
He sees the Oracle. Yeah, he sees it.
I feel like when a Zerg player sees a Stargate and they're going for a Nydus Worm, usually it's kind of one of those, okay, theoretically, there's a chance that they can defend this really well, but it is really difficult to defend with a bunch of Oracles as an opening versus the Nydus Worm.
Swim hosts.
Yeah, so
Okay.
this is a pretty nice map for like some of the Nydus Worm Sormos positions. If you look at the low ground of that main base, there's that area which is very common for the Nydus Worms to pop down. You throw down those locusts and get over to the main base. You can oftentimes get over to a lot of the tech that the Protoss player throws up. And you also have the chance that if you see it's pretty well defended there, you just dive over to the natural instead. Third base or below it is also a nice opportunity, but oh, that Oracle, it does get pushed back, and he saw the lair. He's going to be suspecting something,
Yeah.
but he doesn't see the infestation pit, so he's not necessarily going to know it's Swarm Host Nydus Worm, not just like Roach Nydus Worm or a Ling Queen Nydus Worm, which I think would already be hitting right now, right?
Well, yeah, the Nydus Worm would have come down like probably as an invitation pit, right? Yeah, that is a good point. So right now it is going through his brain like, okay, it's a Nydus Worm. Why hasn't it hit quite yet? Maybe he's still bulking up units, and then soon enough he'd be like, okay, maybe it's Swarm Host, but I don't know exactly when that would hit. Well, he sees it. There you go. That's nice. I mean, it's not. He can't change very much right now.
Well,
but maybe he can find the Nydus Worm. He's been looking for it.
And I think that's a big thing because he has the Oracles here. Knowing the position of where to look for the Nydus Worm, if it's like Queens or Lings,
Oracles.
yeah, exactly. You can snipe this off so easily. If he didn't know that it was going to be Swarmos, he'd probably be looking right at the front of his base or around his main base. But as soon as you see it's Swarmos, you're like, okay, it's going to be on the low ground probably. There are really obvious locations for these.
Oh, a little late to this, but it looks like Namshar kind of half committed to it. Okay, no, it does survive.
Yeah, he keeps it alive and snipes off one of the Oracles over there. That's a really big bonus. And another backup Nydus Worm going down a little bit further forward. Another Nydus Worm going up close to the main base, which will get sniped off. But remember, these Oracles have limited energy.
That's very true, but he is continuing to build oracles, and he is adding on production. He wasn't a silly Billy trying to get a third base or anything like that, but his Robo, not the fastest right. He opened up that Stargate. He's trying to chrono out charge, actually, as the emphasis here, as opposed to the Robo, but the point is, like, units, maybe another shield battery, as that's actually exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
2 shield better than natural.
Whoa, okay, that's a big warp in on the other side of the map. Yeah, if he doesn't have enough to actually push back the Swarmos from doing a lot of damage here, he could be in a lot of trouble. Now, I want to note, Namshar is only on 41 workers. He's actually down in workers to his opponent, and the Oracles cleaning up these Locusts very quickly. The shield battery's also keeping these probes alive. I don't think he actually got any workers there. I
don't think he did. Maybe one. We have a decent enough trade. Even if the Lings were able to clean this up eventually, that's a lot of larva going into Lings. And the Zealots actually probably could have been in a better position, but here come the Queens to help out. That does open up the opportunity to kill the Nydus worms, of which there are 3 out in the map. 1 is building, 1 is found. He's going to get that one, thinking that that's where the Swarm was going to pop out of, and he's absolutely correct.
Well, the Queens are here. They have some transfuse energy available as well. They're going to focus fire down some of these Oracles. 1 Oracle goes down, 2nd Oracle very low, 3rd Oracle does go down. And now the Locusts are here. A backup Nydus worm gets thrown up. And I think that the Locust should be able to find a pylon with a couple of tech buildings. I mean, the Robo's over there, the Twilight Council. Well, that's the Temple Archives.
Okay, getting the Temple Archives might be good, but he's actually going after the Gateway and then kind of decides maybe not. It's half and half here, and I think that, like, Drogo's okay with losing that Gateway. Maybe not 2, and I think the second one will survive, but another big Zealot warp in came in before the Lings could find the pylon, so this time drones will go down.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a big problem. Oh, the Roach Warren is getting focus fire down by 3 of these Zealots. Swarmos can't do anything on their own. They need the backup of those Queens or some Lings to actually handle them. The Swarmos finally unleashed a couple of these Locusts just to deal with the Zealots. That's not ideal at all. Roach Warren no longer getting focus fire down. He could have actually gotten that if he just continued on it, but maybe an opportunity for later.
He's continuing warping Zealots, by the way. Now, this can be a gamble, but it also is sometimes like, well, are Zealots really going to help out defensively like that much?
Yeah, it's a gamble that's paying off right now.
It's absolutely paying off, though. Like, and this started so early, and it was just the right amount of Zealots, too, that's why it's actually working out pretty well. Drogo is still... Oh, wow.
Nice one from the main base, and the Zealot is working away at it. He's not going to unload.
Okay. These Oracles are taking out literally every single Queen here. They're going to lose most of their lives, so we're down to 3. I guess one's back at home or something like that. But then we look back at home, and there really isn't any army for Drogo. I mean, he's got 2 Archons, and that's kind of it. But the Sword Posts really aren't that scary number.
Yeah, and also, those Archons are actually fine handling the Locusts when they have the 2 shield batteries there. The Archons take care of all the Locusts, and only 3 workers go down in exchange for 12 drones, and now Namshar is on an even worse economy. He's finally adding on Roaches, and I think that might be something that he really needs to try and break Drogo's natural, though.
But then he has to always decide, like, do I need to defend? And whenever he's defending with low number of Roaches, those Zealots are actually pretty decent against them. The Archons are also working out because they were taking advantage of some SimCity. As I say that, of course, they get fully concaved on and one goes down, but there's now a 3rd shield battery to help out, make sure that doesn't happen again. It's still kind of a weird game to call, but it feels like Drogo got the handle on it. He's reproducing his production as well, and now at 3 Archons, still feeling pretty okay, knowing that Namshar is still only on 2 bases. All he's got to do is dig into the Swarm Host count. Once he does that, if he can do that, then he can get this under control, but Namshar is not done building those yet.
Yeah, he finally kills that pylon that has been there since the beginning of the game to block the 3rd base. Has caused him so many headaches with the Zealot run-bys. And now these Zealots, I mean, they have a much longer journey to get across the map and do a lot. So these are going to get probably very low on hit points, but they do actually bait out 1 round of the Locust there from a couple of these guys. These Locusts are going to be able to find the Archons, and guess what? These Archons don't have shield batteries here, but they do have a Warp Prism, so with some nice micro from Drogo, he loses 1 Archon, but keeps most of them alive.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So the Roach number is getting up there as well, and they are getting Roach speed. They find the Zealots coming across the map, which is nice. I love this from Drogo. Figuring that reaching for a 3rd base is like a little bit difficult. If his opponent's going to know about it, goes for a secret base.
Yeah, in the bottom center part of the map, Drogo, if he's able to get this base up, that's going to be key because he is sitting on 49 workers, but his main base, his natural, are going to start mining out soon. Same thing for Namshar, but Namshar's only on 29 workers.
Yeah, and Namshar, you know, did get that Swarmos count pretty high up there. He's got Queens with Transfuse energy. He is going to be taking the better trades as time goes on, even with, you know, shield batteries and war prisms, if these units don't actually ever get killed. So it is a little bit more on Drogo to get another expansion.
Oh man, Drogo's always okay. These oracles are kind of gonna devastate this entire mineral line. So Namshar is now pretty much fully all in, and these locusts are just not gonna do anything.
I guess what I said still isn't wrong. He just didn't. He didn't actually have enough drones even to begin with to really get a third hatchery. But he is getting a third hatchery. He just now has to replace even more drones.
Well, at least he'll have larva for it, even if he won't have minerals for it. He still has a bit of army supply, but so much of it is just Swarmos that haven't been getting any real damage done for a while now.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that even when they like got 8 more on their side, right? They still haven't really gotten the devastating damage.
This is why I actually really would have preferred if he had been able to go for some of the tech. Like getting that Templar Archives a lot earlier on, getting that instead of, say, the Archons are just going to get microed back into the War Prism. You can see he's finally going after the Nexus over here.
Okay.
The irony is that while I do actually like this move a lot more than a lot of the other Swarmos Locust waves, is that there is the third base on the bottom side, so he's still in a 2-base economy.
Yeah, and it's actually saturates on the gases, which he's, you know, most concerned about, building a bunch of Archons. Yeah, I'm glad to see that Namshar's Swarmos finally did something, but that feels like something that you'd usually see from the second or third wave is a Nexus fall, unless, you know, you do have the shield batteries there. And it's the, I don't know, 15th wave?
Yeah, I mean, imagine if that first wave that we saw, instead of going after those 2 gateways, he did get the Temple Archives. He delayed the Archons, and then those Archons with the shield batteries aren't there to soak up all of the damage from the Locusts because there's no Archons, so the other gateway units get killed off by the Locusts. Like, everything just changes depending on what those first 1 or 2 Locust waves do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, but yeah, it was even that's kind of like, oh, that would have delayed the Templar Archives maybe like 20 seconds, and maybe Drogo still gets a handle. It really just sucks that Namshar, he got his plans interrupted. You know, as cool as the Swarm Host thing has looked like, it's not really Namshar's thing, first of all, and then second of all, it was kind of obvious that he didn't really plan this from the get-go. He was denied 2 third bases and was like, okay, I gotta do something else.
This was an adaptive plan.
Yeah, exactly. So it always felt like a little bit less powerful than it should have been. And now as Drogo is able to saturate a third base and even getting to a 4th base, it really feels like Namshar's time is running out.
Yeah, and unfortunately he doesn't even realize it because he doesn't know that his opponent has all these other bases. Now, some of the Locusts are targeting right down the Nexus, some of them are going after the Robo, so he should be able to get both of these. That is a nice snag. He's going to even be able to get an Immortal here. That was the only Immortal out on the map. There is still 2 Warp Prisms and also that Oracle. Well, still a lot of ways for him to continue harassment.
I think that the Drogo soon, not yet, but soon is going to feel, oh,
nice.
Well, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Is going to feel confident in actually moving out. He'll have enough units to stop any Nydus Worms in his base, or Swarmos, I guess, Locust in his base, and then also have army moving to find said Nydus Worms, which is actually what he's doing now.
Okay, Storm is on the way. Storm, I think, is going to be one of the biggest timers here. And gets the Temple Archives, so no more Storm for a bit. There's the Temple Archives getting started back up almost immediately, but that is another costly building. Even when you do have all these bases being taken, there's 200 gas, 200 minerals. It's going to take not only time, but resources to go for that Temple Archives again. Yeah,
you definitely don't place it in the same position either. He places it back in the natural alongside shield batteries, so that should not be taken out again. Zealots jump on top of Queens. The army is just clearing up Nydus Worms, of which there are 2. Okay, that's going to be it there. He's going to go for a Nydus Worm in the main base. This is what I was talking about, that Drogo would hopefully have the ability at least to make units take care of something like this, but he's not actually doing that. It's going to pop up.
Okay, and all the units are out of position. That Nexus it has enough energy for a recall, but recall's on cooldown.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I guess, he probably used it for his probes.
Oh god, all the Locusts go off on the Zealots, so he's only really going to be able to get the gateways and maybe... oh god. So it would have been great if he had gotten the other pylons and the other gateways.
Oh, I thought Drogo was like just letting that go. His army stopped moving, but I guess he was microing those Zealots. So again, the main base is ravaged, and it's nice this time because it's not just a Nexus, it's also production and
gateways.
tech. Yeah, that is nice, but this is the big problem that Namshar doesn't realize that Drogo is building other bases, building tech elsewhere, production elsewhere. He's even now losing some of the Swarm hosts. The War Prism did go down, though, so the Archons are limited.
Well, Drogo losing those Archons is going to be a big loss because remember, he was primarily relying on his Archons for his main army. I mean, it was 8 Archons, now 6. Another, how many Dinosaurs have died so far this game? Okay, 15, standard.
Oh, I was going to guess that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't give you the chance to look smart.
Darn, yeah.
Namshar, when is he going to realize that these other bases are down there? Those are my favorite bases. Those are my favorite bases in the whole wide world. Every single game on Year Zero, that is where I hide my Nexus. And I'm telling you, it is such a difficult base to find the time to go bother scouting.
Yeah, and like with how this game has gone on, longer than I anticipated, I wonder if like Drogo had just taken a regular third, would he have been able to defend it? Would he actually be in an okay position, or would he have died? Are these two bases actually saving him? Oh, that's not a great thing to show. Okay,
Namshar knows now. He says, you're transferring somewhere. He's going to get over here. He's going to click on these mineral patches and say, oh, you son of a gun.
Yeah, that's something he'll be saying. There is a recall now, right? This is full energy, and it's available.
Do you go for the recall, though? There's only 6 Archons and a handful of High Templars.
I think
he's going to go for it. Wait. The Ravagers are going to retreat.
Oh my god, oh my god!
Oh, that's what I was a little bit afraid of.
Oh, there's no way you're going to know
some files.
High Templar boom again.
Okay, well, there's still a handful of High Templars left over. There's about 5 with some storms. I love that the Ravagers and Roaches split up on 2 different sides. So now Namshar's going to get a scout out on both of these Nexus, and the Roaches and Ravagers are taking out all the probes at the other Nexus. So suddenly, Drogo's back down to 43 workers.
Drogo actually is going to end up losing this game, isn't he?
Stop! Don't even call it right now. This game has been too crazy to even call.
I mean, he's down less than half the army supply, and while that is a lot of Roaches and Swarm hosts, he doesn't even have that many Immortals. Look at this army. That is it. That is it.
Oh my God, those storms are amazing, but I don't.
And more storms.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I'm telling you, don't even try calling this.
It's like the Swarm hosts are still missing from this equation, though.
Yeah.
Like he's cleaning up the third base, the main, and he's going into the natural.
Yeah, and he's also killed that third, that hidden base in the bottom left, so he can move to the next base now. He's killing off a lot of the production as well. Archons move forward. It seems like Namshar has actually been bullied back a little bit as so many of his Roaches are low on hit points from the storms. He wants to pull back. He's finally going to dive in. More storms go down. He's going to take out most of these Roaches, but the problem is it a cost-efficient trade? Does he have enough to handle the reinforcing Roaches or Lings that are going to pop out?
I mean, speaking of cost-efficient trades, if you check the resources lost, it's insane.
Oh my God.
It's why Drogo has lost this game now. Officially, GG is called. Namshar, I mean, he called, I don't want to use a football term here. I don't know anything about football, but he changed things up. And I don't think that was his plan from the get-go, and it kind of had a lackluster start. Those first 10 Locust Waves, I would say, were kind of like, meh, and yet still is able to pull it out for the 19-minute win.
Really cool game, and all off the back of PtitDrogo saying, no, I'm going to pylon block this because I only saw 2 Zerglings, and you can't do anything about this, and I'm going to make you make more Zerglings. Namshar says, I'll take the other third base. Drogo says, no, I will defend this third base with another pylon as well. And Namshar says, screw it, I'm done. I'm done with this.
So Drogo was asking for that to happen to him. He's asking to be Nydus wormed. Is that what you're saying? You're blaming him? You're blaming him? All right. Well, that was surprising ending to that. I guess, I really thought when the first Locust Waves weren't doing anything.
Yeah.
He was getting up to Archons. He was saving his army for the most part, that he was doing fine. But around minute, I want to say 12, I did look at the resources lost, and it was 9,000 resources lost in favor of Namshar.
Even at that point, to me, I was still uncertain that it was that bad for Drogo, just because Drogo still had about a 15 or 16 worker lead. So I thought, and he's taking the hidden base. It's still okay, right?
That's why I was like, I guess he still wins, but not actually being able to ever jump on top of the Swarm host, the Roach count actually was able to expand. I mean, we were at a point where Namshar was down to 15 workers, literally on 2 bases with a third just building, but his Swarm host ended up surviving. I think I know we checked, the resources lost, but the units lost. Maybe he lost like 4 or 5?
I mean, the armament supply, even at the worst points there for Namshar, was close to 100 to 40 or so for Drogo. It was 100 supply for Namshar. And it wasn't just like inflated roach supply, it was all the Stormos you were talking about before, which were still remaining alive. So
Yeah.
that was like the weird thing about that game, is that it looked like at almost literally no point was Namshar down or even close to even in army supply.
Yeah, but that's always weird because Swarmos and roaches are
Yeah.
kind of similar in that they are big supply wasters. They
Yeah.
definitely make you look scarier than you are. So when you look at that game at like the 8 or 9 minute mark and they're both at 90 supply, literally they both were like tied in supply, I'm like, well, that means the Protoss is okay here, right? Because he's still not taking any damage from the Locust waves. And then, minute 12, 13, whatever, it started to really turn around. He started to take damage. He lost that Storm, and he was occasionally losing very expensive Archons to, unfortunately, nothing. But I guess also in consideration, those Zealot run-bys that seem to be doing so much, you got to consider there were 700, 800 minerals a pop.
That's true.
Well, maybe 600. But the point is, like, they were a big investment that didn't actually keep the Zerg down enough.
Yeah. It's hard to say that about every single one of the Zealot run-bys, because some of them got their value and some of them didn't. But in the end, we can say it wasn't enough overall on average.
It's just one of those things where it's not enough, I guess, when you don't attack the main army, an army like that, it's not enough to kill their economy because they still are, they're working with what they have, and they're at least suffocating you. So it is one of those things where if he had been able to get out on the map faster and actually stopped any Nydus swarms from popping up after the 15th one, then maybe that's when things should have been in favor of the Protoss.
Yeah. And actually, I'm glad that you phrased it that way, because it reminds me of just like the way that comebacks happen in StarCraft. I always think of it as like there's 3 ways usually that if you are able to retain an advantage in one of these 3 categories, there is a way that you can come back in the game from a big deficit. If you have a superior economy, there's still a chance for you to come back. If you have a superior army, there's still a chance for you to come back. Or if you have superior tech. Those are like the 3 main ways that if you maintain one of those advantages. One of the reasons why I think Drogo did such a good job in game number 1 was he killed a decent chunk of the Hydras. He also killed a lot of the economy, killing off the 4th base and all that stuff with his big attack and everything. And he didn't really shut down a lot of the tech, but there wasn't a lot of tech there.
He hit before the tech was activated.
Exactly. So like he denied all 3 of the major ways you can come back in the game there for Namshar. Game number 2, he wasn't able to deny the army.
Right, yeah.
So Namshar was able to come back from it.
That is it. He wasn't able to deny the army. So many things could have been done. I feel like that's one of those games where Drogo does, like, if that was the 2-0 or whatever, he tweets out and he's like, I can't believe I almost lost that game. Or in this case, I can't believe I lost that game. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he always knew that it was going to be deadly. Maybe he figured he was actually in a losing position once 9, 10 minutes rolled around and he still couldn't get to a 3rd base. And he realized that doom was, inevitable. But I feel like it was one of those situations where, like, it was definitely a manageable start. And things just got weird after that. So Drogo not going to get the double deny. Might not even want to. It means Namshar does that again. Namshar showing that he can be flexible, which is one of the common critiques of him. Like, literally, he changed things up there, not just because he wanted to, and that was his plan, like, oh, I'm going to do something weird.
Yeah.
It was, well, now I have to do something weird, and he was able to execute it properly to win.
Yeah, definitely got a little bit dicey, but he made it work in the end. And woo, okay, another fast 2-base layer.
It was so good. I'm gonna do it again.
You know what? It worked, and I think that, and I'm sure even Namshar would be like, it worked, but things were not looking great at the beginning. I've learned my lessons on how to improve this even more. So with the knowledge I have of what happened that last game, I can definitely win this.
Yeah, I'm there. I might get you. But the question is this like, oh, okay, well, the lane gets in. That's kind of awkward.
Okay, we also had the Adept making its way forward, and it does spot out. There's still no natural. At 3 minutes, 3:30 is the worst time.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, yeah. Seize the lair. That's going to reveal everything.
Yeah. So, but this, it wasn't so much a problem for Drogo to be surprised. Well, I mean, a little bit. Like, maybe if you had seen the lair even earlier last game, or the infestation pig, because that was the big question mark, then maybe he could have changed things up, but
did he see the
early
roach
scout? I don't
No, he didn't. He didn't make his way that far back. So it's still going to be a bit of a question of what is this layer going to be used for. I don't know that he also made it too far in to see like how many gas geysers were there or anything. So there's still actually a lot of potential. While it is almost 99% of the time going to be some form of a Nydus swarm, there are still some other weird things that you do have to be at least a little bit cautious about. You know, there's things like the fast 2-base Spire, which is more of an NA thing because that's the only place that would work. Yeah, it usually is going to be the Nydus swarm.
Well, to your point though, like there's maybe just a 2-base Roach with Roach speed attack. So it's almost like a ZDZ opener, which I would not say is very common at all, but it does happen, and that is what's happening. So
okay,
I got to cheat a little there, but
yeah.
I was gonna throw that out. So the 3rd base comes down later. If Drogo, I mean, he has to take that seriously. Scouting the lair at that timing, scouting there was still 2 bases, so he did change his build up to accommodate that. He got that charge first, opposed to probably just going into an Archon drop, and an Immortal too. So now he needs to work with that.
Gonna see the timing of that 3rd base coming down so late. How far into the main base will he get? Not very far, so he doesn't see, or doesn't really confirm the lack of like a Nydus swarm or anything. If you can get all the way into the main and you've seen all the 3rd base, you've seen all the creep spread, you pretty much know what buildings could or could not be there, unless they proxy like a Nydus swarm, which would be strange. That'd be next level.
They like spread creep to put the Nydus.
Yeah, with the lair. Actually, okay, I think I know what I'm doing in our next set of team games.
Okay, oh god. So the thing that really sucks about this is that as Drogo is trying to react to this kind of auto opener, he's also being kind of thoroughly scouted because you get such an early Overseer. And while an Overseer is something you can take down, it's not a speed Overseer. It's still just saw everything. It saw how many gateways were put down, what the tech would be. Even if you already kind of figured things out, it's still nice to know. And you would have been able to see the army too if there was one building. And not quite though, as Drogo does just take a 3rd. He is going to warp in Zealots with this. It's a little oddly timed because the 6 gateways aren't turned into warp gates quite yet. But he could definitely add Zealots if he sees an opportunity. But he knows his Roach is already out, so it's like, eh.
Yeah. Namshar's still adding on a lot more Roaches here, which makes sense because if he was going to go for this big attack and everything, but he was still sneaking in a few drones here and there. Yeah, there's another round of 6 drones, so is this just kind of like a transition out and says, well, I have the Roaches now, so I can put some pressure on, maybe try and like deny a 3rd, and keep from taking damage from the Warp Prism?
I think if he saw that Drogo was not taking that seriously, then you do try and like posture with the Roach speed, or if he didn't have the ability to come across the map with a Warp Prism. But otherwise, this really has just turned into kind of a regular macro game. Now, Drogo, he could have maybe warped in Zealots and gone to the 3rd base. We saw it effective yesterday. He is just keeping tabs on the Zerg and harassing and warping in back home, building quite the anti-Roach army, but it's not just Roaches. There is a Spire that's going to be difficult for this form of scouting to actually get eyes on, but an Observer, as I say that, does not have any Spore Crawlers down. The Overseer's on the side of the map. It is gonna maybe be able to see the Spire. Just turn right a little bit. Just turn a little bit to the right.
Oh, I think the Overseer's over there as well.
And he sees it. He sees the Observer. He's gonna die. No, it's not. Just kidding. But the point is, into the Spire.
Yeah. He's busy pushing back that Warp Prism for now and keeping an eye on the Warp Prism with the Overseer. But yeah, if the Spire doesn't get spotted, who cares about the Observer? That's actually just going to sell the story even more, so Drogo's not going to see it and think, well, I got a full scout.
Yeah, and he, if he thinks he got a full scout, he's not going to bother hallucinating any Phoenix, which is quite unfortunate, because I would say that is the ultimate safe move, is to do the double scout like he did in the first game.
The Warp Prism moves back in toward the main base. A single Zealot moves in to see the 3rd base. And that's not where the tech is. And now that Spire is done. +2 missile attack is on the way. And it looks like Namshar does have about 1,000 gas almost saved up right now.
That's scary.
10 mutas. Let's take a look at the army composition of Drogo. He has the Archons. And I don't want to undersell this because a really, really top-notch Protoss player with a Warp Prism and Archons can deal with a small number of mutas. But it is tough. Some players make it look a lot easier than it really is.
So here's the weird thing that can happen, right? Okay, so he does do a double hallucination Phoenix, but they're not. Well, they saw the mutas actually.
Yeah.
But at the last second, so does Drogo continue with attack? This is what I was going to talk about. It gets weird. You actually are capable of maybe taking on the mutas if you force them to come to your Archons. And then the question for Namshar is, do I go to this army and try and take out the Warp Prism, or do I do maximum probe damage? But actually, Drogo's already set up with cannons. He didn't actually see the Spire, but he must have thought that was a possibility. And he just has to focus entirely on this army fight.
Force fields out a couple of these Roaches and Ravagers. The Archon's going to pull back. He's doing more damage over to that 3rd base hatchery. And it looks like it will go down. There's a 4th base further down south. One of the Archons already ends up falling over here. The Warp Prism is actually just staying very, very safe up over here in the top right-hand side of this fight.
Drogo is dominating this fight, and he hasn't taken any probe damage quite yet in any of his bases, as the shield battery cannon combo is just a little too good. Namshar, desperate to hold on, has forced a lot of Stalker Warpins back at home, but I don't think his current army takes on what Drogo is showing.
Yeah, and if the Archons weren't here, he could maybe try and pull the drones just to survive while the mutas continue to do damage, but pulling drones into Archons is not really going to be a viable defense strategy here.
Yeah, and look at that, he even dragged some of those Stalkers who were defensively over to this side of the map. He is now taking some probe damage, but he's probably going to win the game off of this.
Well done by Drogo. Hits the perfect timing. He was prepared for the mutas that before he even really scouted them out. Having those photon cannons in his mineral lines, ready for anything, is able to make this push work successfully, not really having to worry too much about his defenses back at home. He loses 22 workers, so that is a lot, but that Spire is going to go down, and so is a lot more for Namshar.
Yeah, if Namshar had 25 mutas with +1, then maybe he really has a shot at that base race, but he doesn't. So Drogo will take the 2-1.
Well done by Drogo, and that is going to put him in that winner's match. One game or one series away from advancing on to the playoffs now. Big congratulations to Drogo, who, while is currently on Team Makers, I believe that this is actually his last week on Team Makers. He made a tweet about that. So any teams out there looking for a really, really good Protoss player, Drogo's already showing up right now. Definitely worth checking out.
Absolutely. Really nice third game where I think there was a possible hesitation factor where he could have misread multiple times, over-defended or under-defended, and then Namshar actually attacked him, and instead played quite a clean game for having to change things up. So it was, once again, it was like, at the end fight there, you're like, oh, I guess Drogo is actually just the better Protoss versus Zerg player today.
Yeah.
Namshar needs to work it out versus Terran for the rest of the group.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting couple of series that are going to be heading on up. As we take a look, we do still have 3 more series left for Europe. Following this series up is going to be Clem versus Namshar. As you mentioned, Namshar is going to have to figure out what his ZVT is going to look like. After that, the winner's match of Hero Breed versus Drogo, which will decide our first player from this group to advance onto the playoffs. And then the decider match to determine the last player from the group stages to advance to the playoffs. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. Our next series, this Terran versus Zerg, is headed your way in just a few minutes.